Okay, here is our next project. So I purchased this very old, dated picture, especially because I like the frame. It's just a very pretty gold frame with some very nice detailing. So I did take the glass out and clean it, which I just got fingerprints all over it again, but I'll clean it again. So what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to use this matting piece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it over, and I have 4th of July rice paper that I am going to decoupage onto this cardboard piece, and we are going to make a beautiful patriotic picture. So let's get started. All right, I have my paper exactly where I want it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my finger all along the edge here and make a crease. And I will cut out along that crease, but I'm gonna give myself an extra 1/4 of an inch going all the way around, so that way I can just sand off that extra 1/4 of an inch and it'll give me a nice clean edge. Right. So I have cut this out and I have lined up my crease with the edge of my cardboard backing, so I have it exactly where I want it. And now what I'm going to do, I have my DIY liquid patina for my decoupage medium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up one side. I'm going to squeeze out some liquid patina. For some reason, this is plugged. Now I got way too much. All right, and we're going to spread this out, making sure to get it all to the edges really well. Okay, and then I'm going to spray my paper with a little bit of water, and I am going to gently spread some liquid patina along the whole half that I just did, making sure to get those edges. Then I'm going to turn it around and do this side. This is a very easy project. You can do this with any old outdated picture and just really make yourself new decor. And I will lift this up. I forgot to get out my sheet of balled up saran wrap, but it works just the same, I guess, if you just take your time with it and work your way from the center outward so that you don't get any bubbles or anything like that. All right. So now we are just going to let this dry completely before we sand off our excess paper. If you don't wait till it's fully dry, you risk ripping your paper. All right, guys, this is dry, and I'm going to be able to sand off this excess. I just wanted to mention that because this is going to be in a frame behind glass, I really didn't have to seal this with Mod Podge on the top, but I did because it was helping me to smooth out my paper. So, just for future reference. All right, so I'm just sanding in a downward motion. I need a new piece of sandpaper on here. There we go. here. So here it is with all the paper removed. Now all that's left to do is put this back in our frame. So it's going to go in like this. And then this goes like this. I'm just putting it so that it gives it some extra stability. And then I have to get the back piece. All right, so we go, I'm gonna have to do it like this so that it fits properly. Now I did misplace one of my screws, but Lord knows I have a ton of screws that I can replace this with. Oh, look at that. Oh, I am loving it. Okay, our next project is this mail holder. It's pretty beat up, as you could see. It's not in the best shape, but we're going to fix that. I'm going to give this a coat of DIY's Summer Crush. Now, this does not have a built-in sealer, so we will have to be sure and seal this paint when it's dried. So I love this color, and I just think that for someone that has a neutral decor, this would be a perfect color. It just reminds me of like a pumpkin. So, but before we do our painting, we need to remove these little hooks that are down here for your keys. So, grab my screwdriver out and take these off. So, I think I am going to paint the back first. And I'm just going to leave this hardware on here. I'm not going to worry about taking that off. But actually, you know what? I lied. It's going to bother me, so I'm going to take it off. I normally don't like to paint over hardware, so we'll take them off. It'll make it easier for me to paint it anyway. All right, there we go. I feel better now. All right, let's grab out a paintbrush here and we'll start painting. I'm sure I know I'm going to have to probably do 2 coats. Oh my gosh, I can't get the lid off of this paint. Okay. Here we go. I love this color. Look at that. Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, I'm going to start by doing along in here. Definitely going to take a couple coats. Oh, this is such a great color, guys. Really is. Especially if you're doing fall projects. Perfect color. So while I'm waiting for the mail holder to dry, I did put 2 coats of paint. I decided I'm going to put some molds on each one of the mail pockets. So this is an IOD mold, and it is called Classic Elements. And I have already molded 2 of these, but I wanted to show you how you go about making molds. And all you do is you get some cornstarch and a brush, and you brush the inside of the mold, because this will help your clay pop out really easy. So, and then I kind of go like that to get rid of the excess. And then all you're going to do is press your clay down into the mold. This is the way I do it. I just grab hunks of clay and I press it down into the mold. There we go. Anywhere you see that it looks a little bit thin, you can just add a little bit more clay to that area. Just press it down into the mold and you are good to go. All right, so now we're just going to pop this out, and I just let gravity do its work. Turn it upside down and flex the mold, and the cornstarch helps it to release, and voila, there is your mold. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to paint these 3 molds that I made. I am going to paint these with Dixie Belle's drop cloth. And I like to paint my molds before I glue them on. That way I don't have to be very careful painting them on the item. It's much easier to paint them and then glue them on. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to paint these molds, and then we will come back and glue them on. And I like to paint my molds while they're wet, because the paint on there helps to reduce cracking. That is another reason to paint them while they are wet. All right, guys, I am now going to glue these on here, and I am using my Titebond Quick and Thick. I get this on Amazon. So I'm going to grab one of my molds. I'm going to flip it over into my hand. They're still a little bit wet, but that's okay. And then I'm going to squeeze my glue, if I can get it to come out. I still have not all the use in my hand. All right. Then I'm going to take a brush. Let me use this one. And I'm going to spread my glue out, making sure to get all the edges really well. There we go. And then I'm going to turn it over, and the excess glue I can use on my next one. Okay, I'm going to flip it over, and just want to make sure that I'm in the center. And then I'm gently going to press down to make sure that all of my edges are flush against the surface. Just very gently. And I'm going to do the same with the other 2. All right, guys, I have all of my molds on, and these are going to dry overnight before we can continue on to our next step. We are back to our project. These molds have dried overnight, but We still did get cracking on these, but you know what? I'm just going to embrace it because I'm going for a vintage look. So we're just going to go with it. You could fill in the cracks with some more air dry clay and let it dry, but I'm not even going to bother. I kind of like the looks of it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I want to bring out all of the details on these molds. So I'm going to use dark wax, but before I use my dark wax, I need to use clear wax first, because the clear wax will give you the ability to wipe back your dark wax. If you put the dark wax on first, you're not going to be able to get it. You're not going to be able to get it off. So we're going to use some clear wax. I'm just using Faux Art clear wax, and I'm just going to do all of my molds, and I'm gonna also seal my paint. All right, guys, I used that wax on this, and it left it all streaky looking. And I don't know if it's because it has to dry all the way, but anyway, I am just gonna embrace it. And I was planning on putting a dark wax on my molds here, so I'm just gonna apply it to the whole thing in hopes of covering up all of this unevenness that's going on. I don't know why that happened, but note to self not to use that wax, that clear wax anymore. So it is what it is, and we're just gonna embrace it. So I'm gonna take my dark wax, and I am going to go over all of my medallions first. Molds, I'll be all right. And because I sealed these with the clear wax first, the dark wax should wipe back pretty well. I'm just going to do one to show you. And then I'll go off camera and do the other two and the whole item. Okay, so I love this color. It's like one of my new favorite colors. Yeah, I like that. What a difference. Look at that. I love it. All right, guys. This is what we came out with. Unfortunately, it did not cover up all of that patchy color. But it looks better than it did before I put on the dark wax. So all I did is put on the dark wax with a brush and then wiped it off with a clean shop towel. So now all that's left to do is to put our little hardware pieces back on. And I had thought about putting a little bit of rub and buff on them to freshen them up, but all I have is antique gold, gold leaf, black, silver, and then I have this Spanish copper, but that's not going to go either. So I'm just going to leave them exactly the way they are and just put them back on as is. This next project is going to be pretty easy. I have had this stack of faux wood books for quite some time, and I thought today is the day that I am going to get these out of my stash. I printed off from the Graphics Fairy this beautiful book cover. It's actually sheet music, but I am going to put it on these books. So I printed it out on my inkjet printer. You want to seal your picture with some hairspray so that the ink doesn't run. Usually when you Mod Podge over something that has just come out of a printer, you also could heat set it with an iron. Put some parchment paper over the top and iron it with your iron. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to do the iron-on method with Mod Podge. So we will get to that shortly. The first thing I need to do is I need to sand off this here. I don't have to worry about the sides because I'm going to be using the Trimmings 2 IOD mold. And I'm going to be putting some trim on over these words. So I'm not worried about that. But I do need to sand off these paws because I don't want them to show through my paint. So, I mean, I don't have to get them off perfectly, but enough to where my paint will cover them. So I'm just taking my little finger sander and sanding over them. But because I am so anal, I will just sand them off completely. Because that's just the way my brain works. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to paint these books. And for that, I am going to use Fusion paint in the color Plaster. And Fusion has a built-in sealer, so I don't have to worry about sealing my paint. So I'm just going to take my Fusion paint and a brush and squirt some on here. And I'm just going to paint this. It's only going to take one coat. Like I said, it's going to be covered with the graphic anyway. So I just kind of tried to go with a color that was similar to my graphic. Okay, my books are painted. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to mold this right here. All I did is take a paintbrush and some cornstarch and dusted the inside of my mold so that my clay will just slip right out. And I just kind of roll it into like a snake shape. And then I just start pressing it into my mold. Whoops. When it's dusted with the cornstarch, it doesn't want to stay in there at first. So, and I'm just going to press it in there. Now, as I said before, the IOD molds have a micro rim, so it makes it much easier to get the clay off. You can do it with your thumb. I just have better luck usually doing it with this straight blade. And any place where I took too much clay out, I just go on in and add some more. All right, now I'm just going to flip it over. Actually, I don't even have to. Look how easy that came out. Look at that. Clean up my edges. Make sure there's no excess clay. And then this will get glued on here. I will cut off these end pieces. So I'm going to make 2 more of these, and then we're going to get them glued on. Okay, I have all of my trimmings molds done. So I am just going to cut off this end piece. before I glue it on. Actually, it would be easier to come up this way, but okay. Now, because this is 3 books, I'm going to use a different image on the other side. Oops, I didn't have it down far enough. That's okay. It'll work. It will work. The air dry clay that I am using is Jovi air dry clay. I get it on Amazon. So I need to, I could take these off now and get my Tight Bond glue. And this is what I will glue these on with. I'm just going to squeeze some on here, and then I'll spread it out with a paintbrush. Just make sure I got enough on there. And then lay my molds on top. Making sure to get the edges really well. All right. Making sure that they're on here evenly. Pushing them together. Pressing with a very light hand to make sure that they're adhered to the surface. All right, now that I have these adhered, I am going to, I'm going to paint them. And I'm using the same color, the plaster paint. And I'm going to take a soft brush with a light hand because you don't want to distort your details on your molds. So you just want to take a very light hand and a soft brush and paint your molds. Now it's time to put on our Mod Podge. And I hope that this is not plugged. I can't find my large bottle of my matte Mod Podge. So I'm using the small bottle. All right, so we're going to put a nice even coat of the Mod Podge on here. And then we have to let it dry thoroughly. Once it's dry, then we're going to take our graphic. We're going to lay it on top and then put a piece of parchment paper over the top of the graphic, and we are going to iron it. And the heat from the iron will reactivate the Mod Podge and glue my graphic right to my project. Our Mod Podge is dry, so now we can, I cut out my cover. And I'm just going to make sure that I have it exactly where I want it. Okay, make sure I got enough space, because I always leave extra so I can sand it off and have a nice crisp edge. Now I'm going to take my parchment paper, lay it on the top. I have this little craft iron. It's really small, but it does the trick. And now I am just going to iron over my image. If you're using a regular iron, you do not want to have the steam on. You want it on the highest setting with no steam. And you're just going to keep running over your image. Now, if I was using my regular iron right now instead of this little one, this would have been adhered already, but I just want to make sure, because this is so small, that I'm getting every area. And we are stuck. All right, now here is my second page. Just want to make sure. All right, we are good. I'm still holding it with my hand till I get my paper on top. And now I can start ironing. Now, the reason that a lot of people do this method is because you don't get any wrinkles or bubbles. I mean, it comes out perfect. But the problem is when you go to seal it with some Mod Podge, it usually will get wrinkles. So what I'm going to do is I am either going to spray it with a clear matte sealer, or I'm just not going to seal it. Because this is not something that's going to be played with or anything. It's just a decor piece. So I'm not really worried, you know, about that. I mean, it's definitely not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean? It's not going to fall off, or so. It just depends on what you want to do. All right, and we are all stuck. So now I am just going to sand off my excess paper. And that's another benefit to doing it this way, is you don't have to wait for the Mod Podge to dry. You can just go right in and sand off your excess paper. My molds are still wet on the side, so I need to be careful over on this part. So I'm probably going to wait to sand off this until the molds are dry. Actually, what I might do is hit this with some dark wax once everything's dry. But this is looking really cool. This is looking really, really cool. The next thing I want to do to this is age up the edges of the pages a little bit. So I'm going to take my Tim Holtz Distress Ink in Vintage Photo. And I'm going to take my little blending tool here, and I'm going to add some of that to the edges of my book. Let me show you so you can see up close what this does to your project. It really looks fabulous. Really adds that next level. Now next, I was thinking I would like to paint the pages. I was thinking of doing them gold. Oh, let me zoom out a little bit. Holy cow. Because I know I love really old books that have like the gold pages. I was thinking of doing that, or using the Distress Ink and doing the pages. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think. Let's see. Let's see how that'll look. Make them look yellow. That actually looks pretty good, I think. Okay. All right, so now I'm adding a little bit of the Walnut Distress Ink to the page. And I definitely like it with the two colors, for sure. Hey guys, we are ready to add some age to these bindings. As you can see, we did get some cracking, but you know what? That's what happens with air dry clay. So what I'm going to do to add some age is I'm going to use Pink Couture, Antiquing Glaze, and Van Dyke Brown. And I'm just going to take a brush and make sure that I get into all of the details. Like I said, just a nice, you can use a stiff brush. I'm just using a soft brush because I feel like it's a little bit more flexible to get in all those areas. I may even use a little bit of this on the pages. I'm not sure yet. So, all right, we're going to wipe this back. Oh, I love that look. If it's too dark, you can always take a baby wipe and wipe it back even further. But I love this look. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here is our book stack. I also wanted to mention that I sealed in my graphics with some clear wax. You could also, if you wanted to, go over them with some Decoupage medium or a clear matte sealer. I did end up putting the Van Dyke glaze all along the pages and into the crevices there as well. So what I was thinking is I may add some twine around here and a key. Boy, I wish these keys were a little smaller because these are nice old keys, but they're like way too big for this book. So I did pull out this one, but I'm not liking the blue on there. So I am going to take out my antique rub and buff. And I'm going to put a coat of that on this key. All right, so here's the key with the rub and buff. So what I've done is I've glued the end here of the twine. And I am going to start to wrap this haphazardly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just wrapping it on there. And then I'm going to glue the end back here. Use my finger protectors so I don't burn the heck out of my hands. Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like it.